this formal apology for slavery and racial segregation. The resolution before us presents us with the opportunity to address face-to-face the unconscionable, the abhorrent acts of slavery and its aftermath perpetrated against fellow human beings. The apology resolution describes some of the gravest injustices of slavery: families enslaved, then torn further apart after family members were sold separately, stripped of their names and heritage, a system of forced labor that persisted for 250 years, brutal and unspeakable acts of violence against slaves. The injustices continued well after the 13th Amendment to the Constitution ended slavery in our nation, because Jim Crow laws disenfranchised former slaves and subjugated them as second-class citizens. After presenting detailed findings regarding slavery and the system of de jure segregation known as Jim Crow, the resolution reads in part as follows: that the Senate, quote, acknowledges the fundamental injustice, cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery and Jim Crow laws, apologizes to African Americans on behalf of the people of the United States for the wrongs committed against them and their ancestors who suffered under slavery and Jim Crow laws, and expresses its recommitment to the principle that all people are created equal and endowed with inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and calls on all people of the United States to work towards eliminating racial prejudices, injustices, and discrimination from our society. Madam President, in 2005, the U.S. Senate passed a resolution formally apologizing for another tragic legacy of historic racial inequalities in our nation: lynching. From 1880 to as recently as the 1960s, an estimated 5,000 Americans, predominantly African American, were killed by public hangings, burnings, and mutilation. Members of the armed forces were lynched in the country they had defended. Following both World War I and World War II, returning soldiers were lynched, many while still wearing their military uniforms. There would be no new respect for these brave African Americans who had fought for our country, only the old order of injustice. The Senate passed the resolution apologizing for lynching in an attempt to acknowledge the Senate's past failure to address the prevalence of those despicable acts and to allow for some national healing. It is my hope that the slavery apology resolution before us can serve a similar purpose. We're fortunate to live in a time that is not blighted by slavery in this country or segregation under the law. But we live with the legacy of the practice of slavery, and it is our responsibility and our duty to continue to examine that history in order to improve the present and the future. This apology is part of carrying out that responsibility, and doing so in the presence of visitors who are descendants of slaves adds to the meaning of our action.